Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fourth discussion of The Warrior Prophet, which is the second book in the Prince of Nothing trilogy by R. Scott Baker. We are reading this series about 100 pages every week, and we meet weekly for discussions. The audio of our discussions go up on Steve's podcast called PageChewing and on my YouTube channel, Reading by the Rainy Mountain. If you'd like to join us for these discussions, next week we're reading chapters 18 through 21. Consider joining the Patreon forum if you'd like to talk to us either here in the actual discussion or on the forum in by interacting with us on threads. The forum threads, not the one that Meta started. But with me, I have the usual group of friends. Steve, would you like to start us off with introductions?
Sure. Steve, this is my second time reading The Warrior Prophet, and I'm having a good time rereading this one back in this world. Sounds like a strange thing to say every time I talk about it. Like it seems like a weird thing to enjoy, but um, yeah. But
I
yeah,
feel like we need a new word to talk about things that aren't necessarily palatable, but that we appreciate, not enjoy.
I will say though, I think reading this book and reading Carl's book at the same time, because damn, Carl, you're killing me. You're
Yeah,
killing me with the tragedy.
it gets it
Really.
gets it gets pretty dark. Yeah,
Wow. There's a lot
there's a
of
Haven't
lot of sad people right there.
yeah. Yeah,
I
I
actually
haven't
I think in terms of just in terms of like named characters and stuff, it's probably even bleaker. My book, a lot of people die. It's a real Oedipus Rex sort of situation.
yeah. I
Less
thought they
less
had a
mom screwing though. No mom screwing.
yeah.
That
There's
doesn't
always that. Yeah.
happen. I guess I'll jump in since I'm Carl. First time reading The Prince of Nothing. Very much enjoying it. Very much enjoying this book. And you know what? I'm gonna push back against the idea that okay, I agree there should be a word for like when you're like appreciating art that maybe isn't pleasant. But I feel like I am enjoying this book, and maybe I'm a terrible person because of that. But I am finding enjoyment out of watching or reading rather this just like horrible events unfold and heartbreak after heartbreak and people being bad. And we had in this section a pretty significant reveal about someone who I had certainly viewed as a more sympathetic character, where you're like, oh, okay. But anyway, I won't jump ahead. Mike, I'm tagging you.
Yeah, no, I'm Mike. It's my first time reading the series. I'm not ashamed to say I'm having a good experience reading the book. I don't care who knows it, and yeah, yeah, doesn't mean that I want I want to emulate the characters and all their naughtiness and all their bad behavior and all of that. But yeah, it's been quite a ride. I'm curious about your reveal, Carl, because this is so sad. Like I read through it, and then I realized I'm like, what just happened? No, but this is why it's good to go back and review what we just read. So
Yeah,
well,
I mean, this was definitely a dense few chapters. For me, the specific reveal in question was just about Esminet's daughter, because we knew she was dead, and I think we knew she was a slave. We did not necessarily know that Esminet sold her into slavery, which was sad to read about, especially because we got it with the, additional backstory of that, about Esminet's father, I believe it was, who sold her into slavery. And it's like, oh, that those cycles of trauma. I think that's increasingly a theme I'm finding in this series, although it's not necessarily at the forefront. Although you could argue it ties into the darkness that comes before, right? And like what that means, the darkness. But having these generational cycles of trauma. Camian, I think of like his own father and how we don't hear a lot about him, but we know he was abusive, and like a fisherman or something like that. What was her dad or his dad? It was something like that. But yeah, we beat Camian a lot, and you can definitely kind of see how that affected him. and how he treats himself and views himself, and also, maybe seeks out how he seeks out other kind of male relationships. I definitely feel like he's probably in some ways trying to compensate for his father's weaknesses, but that he isn't maybe perfect at that because he doesn't necessarily acknowledge where a lot of his pain comes from. Similarly with his like misogyny and treatment of, Esmenet. But that's why he's a compelling character, right? Anyway, I'm done talking now. I was sad and horrified.
Yeah. And did it even raise the question about whether the daughter's really dead, or is that what she's telling herself and everyone else to cover up what she did?
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I don't know. I just assumed the daughter was toast, but yeah, I don't know.
I was thinking back to the first book when you were uncertain, Carl, about what really happened to her daughter. I was so sure you'd read something there that I hadn't, even though she said that the daughter died, right? But I think it makes
Yep.
sense now that she would that she would claim her death. In fact, it sounded like she was trying to say, no, she's dead. That it's not the other thing. Stop! Don't when you bring this topic up. So that
I
was
think
interesting.
what stood out to me in the first book was that she was so vague about it. Like that's why I was like, "There's something more here,"
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was. I assumed someone like brutalized her daughter or something, which I was like half right. But
She.
I didn't expect her to sell her daughter. That was definitely a lot.
Yeah.
It certainly puts a new spin on how she's been talking or thinking rather about her daughter and talking about her or lack thereof. And I that's interesting. That's an interesting question, right? Is her daughter even dead? Certainly, we maybe shouldn't trust how she thinks about the events in question.
Yeah. And I kind of feel semi angry at her for extracting all this sympathy out of us about how she's mourning her daughter, and all along she did it to herself. Okay, I guess there's a bit of an explanation there in that she was so hungry and this was the way she saw out, and she's regretted it ever since. But also, and maybe she's deserving of sympathy for that, but yeah, it still feels I'm looking at her differently now.
Well, and it makes me wonder too, like, I mean, I guess she was in that specific period where she was starving, but I just felt like she seemed like she was more moral when I mean, not like she's like this uber righteous character, but she clearly had fallen very far and had in some ways clawed her way back. And I guess, in the intervening time, I think we're not led to believe. I believe the way the timeline works out is, around then is when she met Akamian, and I don't know if that has any impact on it, or if she just was in a better mental state by the time. Better, very relative here, right? Like I don't know, because she definitely just seemed not just like wiser in that she'd experienced more life, although definitely that, but also just like genuinely more moral too. So I guess it just kind of shows the desperation, and also again the way that trauma can kind of leak out, whether it's through that like sort of those cycles, and also just how callous she had been and that she no longer is. Like I associate Esmenet with like compassion a lot. Like I think of like Surway and how she gets jealous of Surway, but she like actually treats Surway very well. And I fully, when they first met, thought that Esmenet was going to react the way that other women in Surway's backstory kind of reacted to her, and like feel very threatened and be kind of like catty. I think that would be the more like tropier, probably more misogynistic way of writing it. But she like actually was kind of maternal or sisterly with Surway. But certainly selling your daughter into sex slavery is not the most compassionate act. I don't know. Curious about your thoughts, Mike.
When I read that section, I mean, I totally agree with you. That was jarring. But when I read this section, I thought, was it the father that influenced her to do that? Because if she's unmarried, and also, I mean, their status as, I wonder what compelled the father. They must be some very low caste, or I'm trying to dig into maybe the culture a little bit, about what compelled the father to do that with Esmenet. But then it sounded like, yeah, it was. I wondered if Esmenet was very young. Like, I don't know what the conditions were, and if you're a prostitute or sex worker, and you have a baby in that world, what does that mean? Because in a lot of parts of the world, let's say in Middle Ages, I assume it would be very difficult to have a child. Just very difficult to even raise a child in that environment. So, it's just pretty awful. And I don't, like, I think we said early on in book one that we can't really, nobody's really safe, or I don't think we can really feel like, anybody's like a good character, if you will. And this, yeah. And I was very interested in Esmenet's kind of trajectory as well with Kellis, but I think maybe that comes a little bit later. But there's a lot going on with Esmenet in these 4 chapters for sure.
Yeah, I think Varsha, I think, and Mike, I think you mentioned these chapters are very dense, but I think we have the battle, and we have the end of the battle. A lot of things happen at the tail end, and then on both sides of it, we have a lot of revelations and character stuff.
Mm.
So it was almost like it felt like the middle was a lot of battle that I like you, Varsha. I kind of get lost in the battles, but the end of that, and then the before and after there's a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely am getting lost in the battles. I'm not. I don't want to say I'm skimming through it a little bit, but I'm just not always following it. And I'm trusting you all that it's maybe not as important.
For me,
to admit it. Yeah.
It's just getting a feel for like generally what's happening. Who's winning, who's losing. Like I got like the twist in the battles, like, oh, here's the Kyanine, reinforcements coming in, and then, oh no, like I couldn't tell you honestly how the Inrithi ultimately won. Like I my feeling is that it's tied into what Nair and Kellis were talking about at the beginning, that it's about like persistence and like spirit and like just that sheer zealotry driving you forward. I forget exactly. I would have to look it up exactly the phrasing that Nair uses. But I'm curious, while we're talking about like before the battle too, what you all think of General Martimus, because I found him as like a character who has gradually like kind of crept up into the story and has been more interesting to me as we've gone along, particularly because he's straddling this line as like he's falling for Kellis. That he's one of the people who's like seeing Kellis and like, oh, this dude is more. He's something else. He's something different. At the same time, he is supposed to assassinate Kellis, and I think it's a really interesting tension there. And I will admit, I'm not shocked by his inability to follow through, but it's very compelling to watch him struggle with that, I feel like.
Yeah, I like that. He's sort of our stand-in for people who is indoctrinated, the right word, into following Kellis's cult. So
Drink the
just
Kool-Aid.
yeah. So I guess the switch, and we started off by learning that Martin is one of the most loyal people, right? That Gonfus would trust him implicitly, and I was reminded in this set of chapters that we read that he was the one that Confus was giving his like having that conversation with that Nair overheard, in which he was talking about how war is intellect and etc etc. So he does trust him with a lot. So to go from this end to it's not that those aren't mutually exclusive loyalties, but I think the conflict that he has to struggle with is interesting, and it feels almost like he's not putting up a fight. it
Right.
that he's not fighting for his existing loyalties, which I suppose goes to show the depths to which callous can take over your consciousness. And that is disturbing, still as disturbing to me as it was last week.
I mean, I
Maybe
think,
more.
yeah, I think it absolutely ties into everything you're saying there, and it also speaks to like the Nansuri imperial family's complete inability to like build relationships. You know, like people inspire loyalty like for like they're charismatic figures. You know, like they're they do things to attract people to them. That's more than just being like strong. It's like expressing compassion and affability and things like that. And it's like the imperial family is so caught up like with their heads up their own asses that they don't even think to like maybe our like counselors should like us, you know, like maybe not all the time. Like obviously sometimes you're going to piss them off, but like, you know, maybe we should like build a cult of personality around ourselves and not just be like, oh, I'm, you know, I am holier than you. I am, you know, because Kellis is literally doing that, but he's doing it successfully in the way of like, he seems like a person to these people. Like he seems likable, you know, and I guess it's that likability factor, even if it's fake, like Kellis is, where that like they are completely whiffing here. You know, Confus is just like, he's just such a jerk. And I like him. I think he's a great character, but like he's just so full of himself. And he just like doesn't seem to really care about building relationships. And I think it's biting him in the ass and biting all of the Nansuri like Imperials in the ass.
I'm still intrigued why that's Dan's favorite character. But maybe there's something we don't know. One thing I don't have anything else to add on Martimus, but that scene where Kellis interprets, or sorry, he catches the assassins and just kind of like nonchalantly, and then he's like, basically he's like, I knew all along, like he didn't seem to have any issue with Martimus. Like he just probably knew that he caught him, you know, in his clutches or what have you, in his aura. Because like, yeah, like you said, he's smitten with Kellis and he can't bring himself to really do anything. Even though he does carry out the orders, I guess, with those other 3 or 4 guys to kill him. But I mean, it was just like nothing, you know, they couldn't do anything against him. But he's becoming increasingly getting under my skin. Kellis, it's like definitely, I don't know. I guess maybe that's the point. But he's kind of a son of a bitch, you know. And everybody seems to love him. I mean, he's like a politician, right? Like, you know, he's like you said, Barsha, it was perfect. It's exactly what I thought. He's like one of these charismatic cult leaders. Of course, he does more. He has more, you know, abilities or whatever, and even the way he treats the women, you know, is really kind of. Yeah, I don't think he loves anybody. I don't know. It's a question for you all. Not to jump around too much, but I'm not convinced that he really does care for anybody, but I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just in a pessimistic mood or something.
I agree with you.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think he loves anyone. I don't even think the Dunyain, I think they've cut themselves off from all attachment. And I think I mean, my reading of it is definitely that it's sort of supposed to show the horrors of this, just like logic above all, losing that, like, often what we call kind of like the human heart, right? It is horrifying in the way, I mean, it also is getting under my skin. Like watching him seduce Esmenet is just horrible. It's horrible to watch.
Yep.
Yeah. What's upsetting particularly is that I knew that was coming, right? Like,
Yeah.
right from the moment that Esmond had joined their camp, we knew this was coming in some form. But it still bugged me as, like, first I thought Esmond was stronger than that. Combine that with the revelation about her daughter, and and I don't mean stronger like that. Of course she'd fall for whatever face he's putting up, especially in light of her distress about Akamian's kidnapping. But yeah, that was really frustrating to read. That, and I'm not complaining, by the way. I'm just talking about
Right.
the emotions that it's bringing out in me, and also what happened with Survey and the consult, that was deeply disturbing. Yeah, it was, it was a very interesting set of chapters.
This was actually maybe my favorite. Yeah, it just like swept me off my feet. I really loved it. I'm really enjoying this book. And speaking to Esmenet and Kellis and all of that, what's so upsetting to me too is that, like, I totally understand why what he's doing is working. I like, there were times I think previously where I felt, okay, we're kind of being told he's like wooing people, but like we're really seeing it here, and it sucks because we know what he is and what he's like. We don't necessarily know like his like real end game besides finding his dad, but it sucks knowing that like he doesn't actually care about these people, and he's
No.
What he's doing is working is because it is on its surface compassionate, right? Like he's helping Esmenet grow beyond her past trauma, and like he basically like talks about modern sort of views of women. He's basically like, women are like equal to men, and like logics his way through that about why that works and like why that's true. And she's like, it blows her mind, right? Like, as it would. And you're like, everything he's saying is like, this is great, but he's saying it for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't care. I mean, I think he genuinely doesn't view women as lesser, right? Like I think he just like, that doesn't matter to him, but he doesn't care about people. He doesn't feel love, right? He's a sociopath, as we've talked about. And it's horrible to be like, everything you're saying to her is right, but you don't care. You don't mean it.
Yeah. It is very disturbing to violently agree with such a wild person. It bothers me a lot that he's saying all the right things. But yeah, exactly. Why you are using it to manipulate, not necessarily hurt people, just to bring them to an end state that you want, wherever that is. But I guess he's the mover of the thought of these people, right? The Dunian talk about being the movers of their own thought or something to that effect. So it for an organization, cult, what are they, that wants to respect or appreciate or follow that, to misuse or to try and move other people and manipulate them the way Kellis is doing, it is deeply disturbing. It's even, I don't know if maybe I'd go so far as to say it's hypocritical of the Dunian's beliefs, but I don't know.
It definitely, in their search for free will, seemingly, it's like imposing upon someone else's that does seem hypocritical. Sorry, Mike, you're going to say something.
Oh, no. One thing I will say that I think makes it more troubling is that we don't get a lot of Kellis POV, right? So we're seeing it. We're seeing him through the eyes of Esmenet, through a lot of, or at least what we were describing earlier, quite quite a few pages, and it almost lulls you into thinking that, oh, he's doing these wonderful things. Like you said, Carl. Like that's what's amazing, I think, about what's going on here, because you can't just take anything for face value. So, I was kind of just remarking, like, everyone is, speaking so highly of him, and now he has disciples, or what is the word?
Disciples is definitely an appropriate word.
Yeah.
They have a specific word. I forget. They give them
Right.
a word for it. I don't remember what it is, but
Zundun. It sounded a lot like Dunian, but it has.
oh, you're right. It had like
started with a
Dunian in it.
Z. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought of them as his future priests or something.
Right. I have to say, also, while we're just like briefly talking about the Dunyan and like kind of their whole deal, I think last week I was like, we don't know for sure. I didn't want to like judge them too hard. Like clearly Kellis had it like a jerk of a mentor or a teacher, if you will. And then we see more of his training here, and it's like, oh, they're bad. Like they're not good. Like the fucking eye pulling, like it was, oh my God. It was like, this is like horror movie, like mad scientist laboratory, it was like, we're just going to research, we're going to figure it out. We're going to rip off their faces. Like, it was crazy. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's how he knows how to read the muscles in people's faces, because they're doing vivisection on human live subjects.
Horrible.
Yeah.
That was horrific. That was something else.
I love the listeners can't see it, but Steve, as we're reacting, just like laughing every once in a while, and going like, yeah.
He's like, it only gets worse. He's like,
just wait.
I didn't expect the face stuff like that. That was like, I didn't think they were going to cross that line, and then they did, and I was like, okay, so they're not just like manipulative, like dickhead, like they're committing like horrible crimes against humanity here. Like this is crazy. And they have the lesser case. They're like the ones that they are like are not good enough. Like, I forget what they call them, but they're like undesirables.
Yeah,
are the ones they abuse. It's just like, it's atrocious. It's horrifying. It's truly, you're like, I want to see the consults deal now. Like they're talking about, wiping off humans and stuff. And you're like, okay, I mean, I don't know if the Dunyan take over, maybe that's a good idea. Like this is horrible.
and the weapon training.
God, yeah.
They called it, the master would teach them the way of the limb. Did you have to put it like that?
Yeah.
But yeah, the author seems to have a thing with faces. The faces on that cloak of that, was it a Shrank or a non-man that we saw in the first prologue, and then the whole thing with the consult and the faces, and then this. Does one of the book titles have the word face in it in the second apocalypse? No, it probably doesn't. No.
That would be appropriate. Yeah, I mean, you're right. Big on faces here.
Yeah. We
haven't even gotten to Nair yet.
Oh, it's so cool.
Is he just crazy now? Like, what?
Who will murder me?
Yeah,
he's just like, wow.
He's lost it. He's gone.
Yeah, he's totally gone. He's just totally. I loved it. I mean, that was one of the things I found most captivating. Is like, we're talking about like how gripping all this other stuff was, and the Nair stuff I thought was like, this is the best stuff we've gotten with him. I mean, because it's very climactic. This felt like the end of a book here, but we've still got like half the book left. It's crazy. I can't even imagine what's going to happen. I thought all his stuff was awesome. Just him completely losing his mind, and having a reckoning with himself and kind of his relationship with Moingus, and his sexuality, and oh my God. And then Kellis deciding to spare him. I don't know what was going on there. Kellis was like, he talked about, he felt pity, which was surprising. And I don't know I think it's meant to be left open to interpretation. Like, was it pity that stayed his hand? Because he was like, well, we can find other uses. There's always another use, but like, why wasn't that his opinion beforehand? You know, it really kind of seems like maybe he did feel something there, which was interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It
Maybe.
felt like a. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Oh no, I was going to say maybe there's hope, but I doubt it.
It felt like he decided not to strike him and then rationalized it as, I'll just put him to use some other way.
Exactly.
Because he didn't want to admit to feeling pity. Or, yeah.
Which is so interesting. It makes you wonder, is that what it takes to like connect with Kellis on any level, is for him to respect you? Because I think he does respect Nair in a way he doesn't respect everyone else around him, because Nair sees through his bullshit, you know? I mean, that's just speculation. I don't know. But like, because that just felt so surprising and out of character for him to like let pity stay his hand. But it's interesting. Like, I'm not, that's not like a criticism. I think it's a really interesting thing for his character. Similarly, like Nair choosing to save the woman. Of course, I knew that wasn't going to go well. I was like, okay, how is he going to turn around and they'd been like shot by arrows, the woman and her baby? I knew they were doomed. But that was really compelling. I mean, that's the most likable he's ever been, where like he's still screaming horrible things, but like he's actively being heroic, That's what I love. I love is like when you get like a truly morally gray character who's like capable of doing genuinely heroic things, as well as being like a rapist monster, And you understand why he is the way he is too, right? It's not just like it's this mystery. Like you're like, I understand his horrible, messed up psychology.
I just got to jump in when he saved the woman and her child. I didn't know what was going on there. I didn't know what compelled him to do it, first of all, and then when they were up in flames, I wasn't sure that it was him. I thought that they were like consult or something, or I was I totally misunderstood it or misinterpreted it.
So I don't think he lit them on fire. I think they got blown up by like.
I thought it was the Scarlet Spires, no?
Yeah,
the sorcerers. Yeah.
Okay.
And Nair had the chloride, the chloride in his hand to protect him, so he survived. But
okay.
Oh, so the people that he saved, they weren't injured. They were Farnham. Is that because why are the Scarlet Spires attacking their own people, or did they just not lose control?
I think it was like a sacrifice. I think they drew them in, and then they sacrificed the people that were there. Is the way I understood it.
Oh wow! Okay. Yeah.
They just like fireballed the area. They were like, kill all the Farnham, and if we lose some civilians, oh well. Yeah,
so I forgot what broke Nair.
It was Kellis. Kellis just like in the battle. I mean, one, Nair realized he had lost, basically, that he'd failed. His strategy wasn't working, or at least that's what he thought, And then Kellis basically like deconstructed him in front of his eyes.
Yeah. Okay. I felt like Kellis did it explicitly, but I wasn't sure what happened there. That makes sense. I have to go and reread that section.
It's weird psychological warfare going on. I don't know. I mean, he was already going crazy, right? Like we saw his mind unraveling slowly. He definitely had been on shaky ground. I think because again, he's like a jilted ex, with like Kellis. He's like, I'm gonna go sleep in my own tent, sort of thing. Like he was like mad, but like he clearly has this magnetic attraction to Kellis too, just based on his relationship with the father. And I don't know, Nair's so messed up. Like it's hard to even talk about it because he's just like paradoxes, like that his everything. I mean, I think that's the thing with him, like saving the woman too, is like it's almost like I don't know. I think if it was a man, he wouldn't have done it. I think it's specifically because it was a woman, and a woman with a baby, no less, that he felt this like because he just left, or no, he was looking for Surway at that point, right? He hadn't found Surway yet, and Surway pregnant with his child, but who has somehow Kellis has claimed. And I think that it's kind of all tied up there in his psychology and just got messy, where like she almost was like Surway for him, psychologically. This idea, and Surway herself is not even really like meant to be a person to him. She's
A prize.
yeah, a prize, and a prize specifically to like prove his like heteronormativity, that he's like, oh, I'm a real man who can like screw women, and like, everything is cool, and like I'm tough and I'm Skilvendi. And it's like hiding the fact that like the most meaningful relationship he's ever had was with a man. Which I wasn't 100% sure on what all was going on until this section. And now I feel like I understand Nair better about like what all was going on, largely because he like directly has to confront it. It was, I don't know, I thought it was really compelling stuff. And again, like this was not at all where I expected his character to go. I think I was very outspoken in book 1 about like not totally vibing with him all the time. And I thought that like the homosexual like feeling twist was like an interesting thing, but I think the way he's been explored here, and like it's really cool. It's up there now with like Karsa Orlong for me as like kind of an subversive barbarian, character that I'm really enjoying.
I guess I see that comparison. Yeah.
He's a weeper.
Or yeah, go ahead, Steve.
No, so he's a weeper.
Yes.
You mean from now on? Oh man. Yeah, that was a very interesting section. So much happened that you mentioned something to the effect that this felt like the climax, and it did feel like the ending of something, or like a lot of things were wrapped up in some sense, so that more things can begin. It did feel like that this section. What about survey and the consult? Speaking of deeply disturbing things.
I thought that was funny when we noticed that Saraway thinks that Kellis is standing in a hole because he perfectly, body snatched or whatever, mimicked.
Yeah.
I noticed that made me chuckle a little bit. But he gets a lot of information, and then I think she gets information about Nayur, I believe, and that's when I think Saraway says something like, you only want to fuck me because you want to fuck your, because of your Moangus, because he fucked you, kind of thing. That was a line that I remembered.
Yeah,
but I think she got that from. I don't. Maybe I'm getting confused. Maybe that obviously came later. But there was, it's on. I thought that was interesting that the consult had no idea about the Dunyain. That kind of surprised me a little bit, or didn't even know what the word was. Didn't.
Same.
But maybe it sounds like maybe they're going to actually uncover some stuff here. I find it interesting that they're just kind of like taking their time. I don't always understand how they operate, because they apparently have so many people, as we learned, that are spies or whatever. And I guess we only see a few of them. But I guess they're gathering information. But I'm surprised that they wouldn't more easily gather information if they can so easily just mimic other people or whatever. And then I think at one point, not in this section, but maybe the previous one, doesn't Kellis say that there's at least 8 that he recognized? And so I don't know how many. And he doesn't really do anything about, what I mean? It's kind of interesting. Like, he's just like, yeah, they're there. I don't know.
Biding his time on when to deal with them.
Yeah, it's just yeah, I found that section to be okay. Like I expected more maybe to happen or something more, because it just
was
kind of like
the console.
Yeah. Maybe it's just me, but or when he would again. I guess they don't get killed, so like doesn't he gets killed by, was it Nayur? I don't remember now. It was Nayur or Kellis. I think it's Nayur that kills him.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
He survives, I think. Yeah.
No, he
Or stabs
survives.
him, or
He gets
right,
out.
stabs him. Sorry, but he
Yeah,
lives. Yeah,
yeah.
that was my point anyway. I just said he killed him, but
The face
you know,
removes itself from the body, I
they
guess.
just live. Anyway, it's fascinating.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah, the consult, I definitely have. I mean, it's a lot of question marks. Certainly, how they work, what all they've infiltrated. Um, the Kellis letting them just like exist is one of the things that I certainly have struggled with the most. Like, where you're like, why isn't he doing anything about them? You know, like I guess he wants to kind of like, but he knows they like know he's a threat is the thing too. So it's not even like he thinks he's still under the radar. That's one of the things I'm like, I don't quite understand what he's planning there, but plans within plans.
I guess his motive there was that he didn't want them to know that he could recognize them. But did that only become clear to him now, or was it before? I forget. I, during that interaction with Sarcellus, right? When they had that weird fight by the fire,
Right.
that's when they found out about the fact that he can figure them out. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a crazy scene.
So we found out that the consult are invested in the Holy War. I mean, I guess that was obvious, but they want the Holy War to make progress and get to Shime for some reason. So that was an interesting discovery in these
Yeah.
chapters. And also, I think we had a question last week about whether, or maybe a few weeks ago, about whether the person needs to be dead for them to assume their face. I guess we have that answered now. I thought for the, and it was interesting. I wonder why, maybe to reveal that they can take on the face of people who are still alive. That whole thing that was set up about Survey sleeping with other people who are not Kellis, because she sees them as Kellis's avatars and she needs to know him and all his avatars. I thought that that's how she was interpreting this person who randomly grabbed her from the behind. But then it turned out that she was recognizing his voice and that she did actually think that was Kellis and he was wearing Kellis's face. So I did wonder about the need for that misdirection, or at least maybe that's how Baker chose to reveal to us that the consult can take on faces of people who are alive. But it didn't become clear until Nair heard the consul's voice and said, "Oh, the Dunian's in there with her. How is that possible?" That they were actually wearing Kellis's face.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you. I at first I was like, because the way it's written, it cuts between the scene with Kellis and Nair, and it almost seems like that scene maybe is like coming to an end, and then you cut to
Mm-hmm.
the scene with Kellis, fake Kellis, unKellis, if you will, and Surway. So I initially was like, oh, this is Kellis, and I was like, wait, this is not. This is weird. What's going on here? I thought that was really interestingly written, like the intercutting there.
Yeah.
Because it did fool me initially. I was like, wait, but did he walk all that way? Like, what's going on here? Like, why did he go back for Surway? It did make me wonder. Yeah.
Yeah, I got the impression that she didn't look at his face the whole time, that because I think he was behind her the whole time. So I thought maybe random face, maybe voice is being mimicked, but then um yeah, that was interesting. But I think in the first, around when we were talking about the first book, someone commented on the YouTube video saying that they found Survey's point of view being really disturbing to read, or that difficult to read, sorry, not disturbing. And I started to agree with them now. I mean, it was difficult before, but what you referred to, Mike, about how she thinks he's standing in a hole, like she'll rationalize anything to suit her beliefs. It feels like she's got a part of her mind missing or something to like, is she's broken, she's so traumatized that she's broken, or she's just plain stupid. I don't want to read that into it, but uh it, it it was very difficult to read the section where, yeah, she got manipulated. It was far worse than Esminet's scene with the consult.
She's definitely the one character I think in some ways I've struggled with the most. That to me, she feels the flattest. Like she I understand why she is the way she is. And I remember being disturbed reading her backstory. Like I just found that like really hard to read. It was just so bleak and just so depressing, so sad. Like there was not even like moments of happiness really in how she recounted it. And I don't know. I haven't been blown away with her character. I just feel like there haven't really been like depths uncovered. Like there are, like we just got another one with Esmenet, right? Like Esmenet increasingly is like more and more complex. And I'm not sold on Surway yet. She almost just feels kind of like she's there to fill a role more than like to be a character. But I don't know, we'll see how that goes. Like if she dies, imminently, then I'll definitely kind of have a bad taste in my mouth about it all. And we'll see. I just have a bad feeling with the baby coming. Anytime there's a pregnant woman, I'm like, uh-oh, especially in a dark story like this, I'm like, this is bad vibes. Like something's gonna happen. Like I worry about the baby. I worry about her. Like I don't know.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say, I agree with both of you. Like, she's not a very multidimensional character, really, I don't think. And I really do. I mean, we feel sorry for her, but yet she's also extremely vain. She's, obsessed kind of with kind of her own, with Kellis in particular, but also would you agree that she's kind of like codependent? Like she needs him, otherwise I think she's really, she's very, I think, well, she even, obviously it's quite evident, I think in one of the last chapters where she's like, I'll do anything, he says, wherever he wants to go, I'll go. So if she's talking to Esmond, she's like, if you want to be with him, it's fine. So she doesn't she's not even have like a soul, or she doesn't have, I feel like she is an example of what can happen with a Dunyain. You can become so enamored that and it does happen also in religion, right? In some cases, I guess, where you become so enamored with, some, your God or what have you, that I guess because there's a lot of discussion about faith and doubt here too, which I, noted. So is she's putting all of her faith into him, I guess. And that's, it's an example, as you said, it's a role, I guess, Carl, that she's played so few roles, because also the relationship with Nair, whatever, however you pronounce it. But yeah, she's like to the extreme of just kind of blindly, I guess, in love with him, but yet and then in contrast, he could give two shits about her, probably, as we said earlier.
Oh yeah, he doesn't care about her at all. No. In a weird, really messed up, like truly so messed up way, I think Nair cares more about her than Kellis does, which is horrible to express, considering how Nair treats her and the fact that in the way he views her is like she's property, right? But it's just, it's just sad. I know that Nietzsche has something, I know Friedrich Nietzsche, his philosophy inspired these books, I think, increasingly in a sort of like in a dark way. Like I think Kellis is supposed to sort of be almost like this is what Nietzsche's arguing for, in like a bad way, kind of a warning. But I know he has something about like slave mentality and, like wanting to like dominate, versus like submitting, and to me, it's like Surway embodies this slave mentality of just someone who is just so flattened by Kellis in particular, and certainly her life before Kellis, but Kellis really, that it's made her just like flattened as an individual. And and I think it wouldn't bother me as much too if maybe we had more female characters and saw more dimensionality. Like that's one thing that I will say. Like it does rub me the wrong way at times, and it did in this section. Like Esmondette, I quite like. Just like as a character, I think she's really complex and interesting. But then we have Surway, and I guess the Empress, who's like barely in the story. I'm just like craving, I guess, a bit more, particularly a bit more like, I guess it's trying to embody the idea, that these like women don't have agency, but I still feel like, I don't know, we could see more. There's more story to tell here, but it's not the one that's being told currently.
Yeah. Yeah, I think both the women are somewhat disturbing to read about at this point. Um, I think I like Esmondette where she is. Don't like what we found out about her, but the problem with Survey is I don't see hope for her character growing. I I don't see where it can go from here. She's not going to have a moment of realization where she's like, "Oh, I'm just being silly. What the heck am I doing?" She had that moment where she saw Kellis as a god, and then she just completely committed herself to that, and she's just digging herself deeper and deeper into that hole. I don't see her coming out of this at all. So her character just feels hopeless to read. I hate being in her head, and yeah, we'll see where it goes. I did see. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just because she would become so much more interesting to me if she had a moment like Nair has had, where like she's suddenly confronted with what she has become. If someone was like, "This is what you are now," and like if she had any doubt, if she had any sort of challenge to her worldview, but no one is interested in doing that, which I mean I understand.
Yeah.
But I wish someone, whether it be Esmondette or just someone, would be like, I mean, part of the problem is because she's obsessed with this person who now everyone views as a prophet, right? So everyone's like, well, that can't be that bad a thing, right? Because he is a prophet. So I get it. Like it's like from a plot perspective, like it doesn't bother me. It's just like in terms of following her character, I wish she had that challenge. As a reader, that's like what I'm craving is for her to show more, to be more dynamic, I guess is the right word. She's not dynamic. She just feels flat.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It feels like she. I don't know what she's supposed to represent, right? Like you're building a world where I think I saw an interview of his where he talked about um, his he addressed the accusation that he was being misogynistic in the world building, the author. But um, let's say Esmondette is your answer to like trying to gain sympathy for a type of person who almost never does in society. Maybe that's who you're representing, but I just don't get what it is he's doing with Survey, what he's trying to represent with her. So it's bugging me a little bit.
So Steve, we haven't heard from you in a while. What are you, whether it be quotes or whatever, what stood out to you in this for you?
Well, I think it's interesting the Survey observations. But I think what I really found interesting was the way that Kellis manipulates Esmondette and the ways that he convinces her about men and women and that we're equal, and he kind of breaks down men, and that she I think it's interesting that she takes longer than Survey did anyway. But that's a whole nother thing. But also Achamian, with him being gone and him being in the situation he's in, that was another part that I really liked about this one. But I have a question for all of you that I wonder, so we all agree that he's manipulated Esmondette. So why do you think he's doing that? To what end? Because Kellis, with everything he does is deliberate, right? Everything he does is there's a purpose for everything. So him knowing the consults around and not alerting them to know that he knows that they're there is for a reason. Everything he does is calculated. So why do you think he's going out of his way to seduce Espinette?
It's a damn good question.
When Akamian was around, I thought he might be using Espinette, or he will come to use Espinette the same way he used Survey to get to Nair. But now I'm starting to think differently, like he wants to get to Espinette for something that only she can do for him, but I don't know what it is. I have no idea. No guesses.
That's what I'm struggling with too. Is I'm like, what does he get from Espinette that he doesn't already have from Surway?
I had the exact same question, Steve. I was going to raise to the group because there was a lot of momentum or trajectory towards where we ended up with I guess she ended up sleeping with Kellis towards the end there, or fell in love with him, whatever. One thing I remembered that I don't know, I think it might be significant, is that which is it was kind of like, is he just being, what does this mean when he like scratches off that text in the tusk that refers to horrors? Like I mean this, because and they were like, this is, you can't do that, it's blasphemous or whatever. He's like, I can do that. It's cool. I'm like a prophet, it's fine. No big deal. But like I wondered if that had something to do with the fact that, I think it was mentioned a couple times that she cannot be married if she's a prostitute. But so maybe he's trying to get to maybe something could happen with that, or obviously, but I don't think he's that influential unless he's buddies with Mathanet, and we don't know, to make some substantial changes in their scripture or whatever that's thousands of years old. So maybe I'm reading into that too much, but that was kind of an interesting scene because it was, he probably would have been beheaded, if he was somebody else,
I agree with you. I thought that was very fascinating, and clearly is showing that he's getting more arrogant isn't the right word, because he knows everything he's doing. Like, he's not arrogant. He's more outspoken, he's more like openly, challenging people and embracing his role as prophet, which he's built for himself. He's contradicting the scriptures is like, that's a big thing. And I thought it was really interesting that he's reached that point where he feels like he can do that. Even if in private, it's like, that's a big deal. And certainly you see that, right, with like prophets, right, that come along, and that's how like Islam started, right? Like, Jesus is a prophet in Islam. They just don't, like, Muslims don't think he was the son of God. And so you have someone like, that's what he's doing here basically, is he's starting a religion, and he is building up this new sect. And I think it's really interesting. It's certainly very compelling to read about, and very unsettling, because we know he doesn't. I guess it begs the question too, like, would it be better if he was a genuine, like, zealot believer himself, or is it, is it just as bad or less bad or more bad that he is just manipulating people without any actual, like, faith, I guess you could say. But yeah, to go to Steve's question, I have no idea. Like, I truly no clue. I was struggling with that. Like, that was a question I was wondering as I was reading. I was like, why does he want Esmenet? When Akamian was around, I was like, maybe to get to Akamian, or like to do something to get Akamian. But she doesn't have power, is the thing. So, like, why does he need her? And even, like, if you think about, manipulating men through sex, like, he has Surway. He's already doing that. Does he just want another person, You know, I mean, she's like, this is horrible and like sexist to say, but like she's getting older, right? And it's already like biting her. Like I'm only saying this because the world, you know, that's what they've talked about, right? Is that, you know, an aging whore it has less value in this horrible misogynistic society, right? And so I don't know what he's looking for, because he doesn't like respect her as a person, right? Like it's not like this is a personal thing where he's like, I just really like Surway and I want to seduce her, you know? Like it's not like a Camion who like genuinely thinks she's like really cool and he likes her, and you know, even in his own kind of troubled way, respects her. What does he want? I don't know.
I mean, just going. I'd love to hear from Barsha, but I wonder if he's got some big plans so that he's going to become more than just a prophet. Like, you know, he's going to be like for him to be recognized, he maybe needs to take a wife, you know, in that society. And with Saraway, she's having a baby from this other guy, so maybe that's not acceptable. Or I could be reading into it, but that was one random thought I had.
But he can claim the baby, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it all depends. You know, they're both blonde, so it depends, I guess, if the baby comes out blonde or not. You know, that would be a troubling. Like, oh yeah, I'm the dad, and like, you know, comes out like dark haired, dark skinned, you know, like Nair, and it's like I don't know about that. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting point, right?
Good point. Yeah.
But why take Esmenet as your wife though, right? Like, why not a noble person, right, who has wealth and power? That's the thing. I don't understand.
Oh, it's a really good point. Yeah. Yeah.
She's nobody. It's horrible. Again, I love Esmenet, but she's nobody.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
why take Esmenet?
Yeah. Yep. I don't know about the wife thing. We haven't had any information so far to suggest to us that having a married partner is important in this world or gives you more power or anything like that. All the generals that we see, all the leaders, the great names, we've all seen them solo. And the only women we've seen are as camp followers. The only POVs we've had are the harlot and uh, also the concubine, right? So I don't know, like it doesn't feel like a woman, even as a wife, would have a whole lot of respect or even add to the respect and power that a man wields. Like, look at the things the Empress has to resort to wield any power. Um, it doesn't feel like. But yeah, I don't know. If I didn't know any better, I'd almost say he likes her, and that's it. That's all. Like, not that he likes her in the way to want to be her partner or anything like that. Just likes her company, respects her similarly to how he, not similar, not quite the same way, but somewhat. I think while we're in his POV briefly, he seems to have some notion of respect for her, because I think he thinks that she challenges the norm or asks questions, and he seems to have respect for people who aren't completely driven by their darkness, right? So I almost want to think that he just wants her around, but I know better than to think that.
Well, what you said something interesting there, which is like, maybe it's the fact that she sort of thinks differently, not for him and for his like the joy of conversation or something, but like the idea that maybe he thinks, like, he basically like creates feminism for her, right? And maybe
Yeah.
he thinks, oh, she's a perfect tool, like a perfect voice to talk about these things I may use, these ideas, you know, these ideologies that I may try to create or exploit. Exploit is probably the more right word for Kellis. That's something that I hadn't considered, is just that, you know, maybe it is her status as like a nobody, an outsider, that would make her a worthwhile voice for something that maybe he can't feel like he can't express as well, on his own at least. Otherwise, I have no idea. I don't know. Drawing up blank here.
Yep. Yep. I I think this came up a few times today and maybe in our previous discussions, but all the things that Kellis does seem right. Like with Survey, he's compassionate, and how he treats her is so much better than how Nair treats her. Same with Esmenet, same with the cult. He's helping people whether we like how he does it or not. The only issue that we may have with him is when they stop serving his purpose, he'll drop them like dirt and leave. That's the whole issue, right? Other than that, it we have all these problems with him, but what do you all think that we had this question about, like, is it better to be in a good place being manipulated or in a bad place but you know exactly what's going on? I think that question keeps coming up over and over again with all these people, and it's really interesting but also like uncomfortable to think about.
I would agree with that generally, but then he had Surway sleep with Akamian, and like I think he does do more than just like drop people. I think he actively like I ruins things, like just destroy. I mean, we didn't get to see what happened, you know. I mean, we saw Esmenet's reaction, but we didn't necessarily see how that would long term impact their relationship. I imagine we will, you know, assuming Akamian doesn't die being tortured, or Esmenet gets, you know, shot by the consult or something, you know. But I do feel like he does malicious.
Mm,
I mean, malicious implies like there's sort of like intent. I mean, it is intent, but I don't know. You know, he's so cold that it's he's not like murderous. He just doesn't care.
yeah,
He's like a snake. Um, I
yeah.
don't know.
Like,
If he, I guess if he like fixed society, then I would be like, maybe it is okay. But I'm not convinced that that's what he's gonna. We've seen what the Dunyain society is like. Like,
yeah,
it's not better. It's
no,
really bad.
nope, it's not better at all. Anyway, that's just something to keep thinking about, I guess, for me. I'm not sure if that keeps coming up for all of you. I was curious. I did have a question for Steve. Did you? What was your reaction when you found out about Espenet and her daughter? That one was pretty shocking, I think, overall. But we didn't really get to hear what you thought about it.
I'll have to be careful. But I think I was surprised that the Kellis knew, and I wondered how did he know.
Mm,
And I think that was something that he was saving for the right time to use to appeal to or to manipulate Esmenet. But I was surprised, but on this, I guess it was like Carl said, it's a cycle of this generational thing where it just happens over and over again. And also, did she do that because she didn't feel like she could? I don't know. Like it's such a tragic um, thing, but yeah, I have to be careful. But
mhm.
that's yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I almost think we might see the daughter that she's not actually dead. But new topic, Proyas and the notion of doubt. I loved that section. I loved that POV, and so many things to talk about there. What do you guys think about the Proyas POV?
I love Proyas. He's been one of my faves from his introduction. Not his introduction, but when we actually started getting his POVs.
Mm,
I don't know why, because he's such a dick, but like, and he's a zealot, and I don't like zealots, but I don't know what it. I love that he's feeling doubt now, right? Like that's, you know, it's what I
yeah,
want to happen with Surway. But I don't know.
yeah.
I
There
like
was
being in his head.
there was so many conflicting things there, like the fact that the doubt was brought about by an article of faith, like Mathanet's letter. Apparently he trusts Mathanet implicitly, so or he would do anything Mathanet tells him to, so he'll even change his mind about Akamian and his blasphemy. So he's feeling doubt, but it's brought about by his faith. And similarly, Akamian is taught him to doubt, but he doesn't. In the case of Esminette, like when one thing that upset me a little bit, in from the character's point of view, not the book, was I feel like I have to clarify, but was when Akamian left and to the library, and his excuse that he gave Esmeralda was that you can't read, you'll be useless there. But Kellis teaches her to read. It never occurred to Akamian to teach her that, like, come with me, I'll teach you to read, and we can read together, right? That did not happen. So he just has these preconceived notions about Esmeralda. He has these ideas about her that maybe aren't necessarily what society thinks of her, but they're still within, they fit a certain mold. And he's not doubting his opinions, like he's not breaking out of that mold, but he was the one who taught Proyas to doubt. So there's just so much complexity there that I really enjoyed that section.
Absolutely. Couldn't say it better myself.
I think it's a really important theme in the series that's probably going to keep coming up over and over again. And I have to admit, I somehow stumbled upon Bakker talking about this somewhere, but I don't think anything was spoiled really, but just like, so I think that it's this constant juxtaposition of faith versus doubt. Having faith is, he's really challenging us to think that having faith is problematic here. But I would say that's maybe a commentary beyond the book, or the series too, which I might agree with, actually. So I really do appreciate it. I'd have to go back and reread it because my mind is like mush right now. But there was one point that I wanted to make about the letter. It was more of a question. So why does Mathanet want Akamian to be followed? Is it followed or guarded, or I forget what exactly was the main message? I don't understand.
Protected, I think.
Is it protected?
I didn't get the impression that he knew about Akamian being abducted. Did he?
Right. I didn't either.
He didn't. No, he didn't.
I think he just wanted him to be kept safe.
Yeah, if you think about like the delay in time of everything, that was like his last news of Akamian was way before that.
So can I peddle my Mathanet is mowing his theory some more?
It wouldn't be an episode without it. I'm here for it. I'm on board.
So we know that the consult wants the holy word to get to. Wait, but why would he work with the consult? Sorry, I think. Okay, so what's everything we know about the consult? And do we think at this point that the consult care about the Anasurimbor at all? I think they did when they found out that. Did we have a section where one of the consult members realized that Kellis calling himself Anasurimbor wasn't just an affectation, that he actually is a descendant of that line, and that meant something to them? So, assuming that Anasurimbor means something to the consult, Mathanet wants Akamian protected so that he can help with the consult, probably. Like any mandate schoolman would do that. I don't know why Akamian in particular.
See, that would be crazy. That would be, that would basically combine the two prior theories, right? We've had is, I think it was Mike who was like, maybe Mathanet is consult, right? You know,
Yeah.
way back even. And that would be crazy if Moingus was consult. Like, that would be nuts if he decided he went out and somehow he got like corrupted. And is it corruption? I don't know. The Dunyanes suck
Yeah.
too. Like, but you know, I don't know. I want either of them running the world. Or in the country. Yeah, I hadn't even fully considered that. I had like was continuing on the Mathanet is Moingus train, but like I hadn't thought maybe he's like that kind of almost completes the circle, you know, is like, oh, he's Moingus who has joined the consult. That's interesting.
But then Akamian, yeah, what does he
Wait,
want?
he would know though. They would know about
Yeah.
the Anasurin boars, and he would know about
Yeah.
Kellis. But wait, no, that doesn't make sense. Never mind.
Mm-mm.
That's the giant gaping hole. Never mind.
So, I mean, I guess where I started from was that Maithanet as Moingus is Anasurimbor, and the consult care about Anasurimbor for some reason, and he knows of it, and or for some other reason, whatever, he has some other agenda, and let's say stopping the consult, and Akamian as a mandate schoolman has information to help, possibly. But then we also know that the consult wants this holy war to get to Shime. So if that's true, then he has to be working with the consult. So that doesn't make sense. Okay, so I take back my peddling.
What if he's infiltrated the consult? What if he's being a skin spy in the consult? I mean, not literally a skin spy, but what if he's a spy in the consult? And that he's doing what Kellis is doing with Enrithi within the consult, and he's creating his own like little group there. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, right? To try to, because we don't know. Like, what is Mathanet's deal? Like, he's mysterious. Is it going to turn out that he's just a zealot and that's it? That would honestly be disappointing after all the mystery. Like at that point, is like just tell us he's like just like make him charismatic. Like I don't need the mystery without something there. I want something to be there. It doesn't even have to be Moingus. Like just something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He could be another. He could be another Dunyan. He doesn't have to be Moingus, right? I had a very batshit crazy theory. I'm not sure if I should share, but I don't want to throw off the discussion if you want to continue talking about
please.
it. But
no, go ahead.
Love batshit crazy theories.
At one point, I was like, could every prophet potentially be one of these Dunyan people? Even
you're going all the way back.
Even the Phanim prophet, and
that would
you know
be
what
crazy.
I mean. That was something I was like, so because we don't, like you said, Carl, we didn't see that side. We don't really understand what's going on there. I think we get 2 pages of Scorus, and he's like, I'm going to burn this paper. So there's something. I was like, okay, it's kind of like the mob is going to get raided or whatever, and they have to get rid of everything, or I don't know. Maybe it's a bad example, but yeah, like I just was like, anyway, it's kind of out there, but maybe there's just a tradition of these people coming and putting themselves as these prophets or whatever.
That would be wild.
Because I was starting to turn towards your side, Barsha. I was starting to believe that Mathanet was Moingus. I was really feeling it, and I listened to your from 2 weeks ago. I listened to your discussion on that too.
Yeah, I don't know. What other Mathanet is X? What other X's would make him interesting? That like people or types of people that we are aware of.
If he was one of the Sisharim, that would be interesting. I don't even know how that would work, warring against them, but I don't know if there's some sort of 4D chess going on there. I mean, that's the entire premise of this, like Mathanet is X, right? Is that Mathanet is playing 4D chess, and we don't know yet, right? Is like there's some secret motivation going on, some secret game, and he's not just a zealot who just wants a holy war.
Maybe he's a non-man.
I mean, that would be interesting. He would have to have probably some magic disguise, but that would be cool. I would be on board with that. He probably couldn't be a Sronk, right? Because they're all like orky.
Yeah, what do they look like? They're
But
they
they
have a
could have
language. I
magic
know
too.
that.
They seem like they're like totally like out of control was the vibe I got, right? Like full barbarian rage mode, you know. But I mean I don't know that for a fact. We only saw them I think in the prologue, unless I don't know. With the console stuff, like I don't know what their thing is exactly. You know, like what are these things? We know the old name is the name of like the little bird guy, and I don't know what that means other than that he's old. I think we got some other name for him too. Synthete or something like
Synthes.
Yeah.
Synthes. Yeah. Wow, I'm surprised that I actually remembered that. And then we have the Skin Spy, which I don't remember if we've gotten a name like a consult name for. But I don't know what else they've got going on. Is the old name is the Synthes? Is that one of their creations? Like, is that like an Urukai or something, or is that like one of the sorcerers? You know, that's one of the things I'm wondering because have we not met any of their sorcerers yet? Because those are like the top dogs. Those are like the Forsaken and the Wheel of Time, right? I don't know.
Yeah. It's all very unclear at the moment, but
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's one of the things I really liked about this section was we got more of them and we got to see their POV more, and learn more about them and what they know and what they don't know, because it's a mystery that, like the Dunyain, I am eager to unravel, and like Mathanet, I'm eager to unravel. I got to give Bakker credit; he's really good at these mysteries, where like he teases out this information, and it really, I just enjoy it. You know, it's a thing I enjoy in series. You know, if you're going to have this long running story, having these like long form mysteries that you like gradually seed out information, I think he's doing a great job.
Yeah, I agree. That is, among other things, definitely what makes me want to go back and feel. I think the mystery that I'm most attached to at the moment is who the heck is this Mathanet guy? But also now I think what the heck does Kellis want from Esmenet? And I suppose I want to know how Akamian's going to get out of there. Well, I don't really care about that much. I feel like
I want to know what happens. I want to know what happens to him. I think he's kind of the only good guy. Well,
yeah,
kind of. Obviously, he's got his issues.
I feel like there's
I like it.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying I like him. I like Agami. I mean, he sucks, but also he is like relatively a good guy. So I'm pro Agami, and you know he has aspects of him that are like it's not just that he's relatively better. Like he has some aspects of him that I find genuinely very like easy to empathize with.
Oh, I like Akami, and I just think there's no real mystery there because we know he'll survive enough to write those histories. So he's getting out of there.
Okay.
Does anyone else just feel like, I don't know why, I just have this gut feeling after the last section that he's just gonna go nut like John Wick on them. Like I just have this gut feeling that something's gonna happen, he's gonna get let out, and he's just gonna go crazy on the Scarlet Spires people. But maybe that's me, like I don't know, projecting weird fantasy expectations. I don't know. I just have this like gut feeling that he's gonna get some like he's gonna blast them.
It makes sense. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
He was he did a lot of damage in the library. He kicked some ass. Like he killed 2 people, and it's just him against like a big group. I actually really like that. I was impressed because he kind of did something, you know, because otherwise, you know, so that would be great. I think he's capable of a lot. Yeah, and sometimes he just kind of holds back.
I want him to kill Elizaris so bad. Bakker successfully made me hate this dude. Like I thought the Scarlet Spires were so cool when they were first introduced, and oh my god, just like we need new leadership. This isn't working. Like get him out of here.
Re-election.
Yeah, new election. Vote someone else into office. I'm done.
There's we found out about the gnosis, so that's not too far-fetched. That was new, right? We found out why the gnosis is as powerful as it is. It apparently works with the raw elements, and the others have to work with shadows or whatever, which kind of makes you wonder why the or maybe it says something about the world and people, that despite this power that they have access to, the mandate schoolmen are a bit of a joke in the world and among the other schools because of their obsession with the consult. You would think that people would take them more seriously, given how the gnosis was described as being so much more powerful than what the other schoolmen can do, and yet they're a bit of a joke, which
They
was
just have the
interesting.
worst PR. Their PR department sucks. Fire them all. Bring in new PR people.
Hire
they have
people who don't cry.
they got to work on their brand.
Yeah, everyone looks over and there's like, oh, it's the losers crying in the corner again. Get them out of here. Like they're no fun at parties. No one wants to join the mandate.
It's like, yeah.
You gotta like don't lead with the pitch of like, oh, the bad guys are coming back and the apocalypse is gonna happen. Lead with, we have the elemental energies. Come on, like
We can burn the
put
world.
me in, coach. Put me in. I'll turn it around.
All right. I think we're at the point where we'd ask Steve for quotes. Give us some, Steve.
Yes.
Well, one of them that we mentioned before, and just is on page 343, was Golgotha raised about the greatest terror ever to fall from the heavens.
What I forget the context. What was it about?
That was one of Akamian's dreams about the first apocalypse.
That stuff was awesome. The description of their big like castle and everything, which we learned again was like built around a spaceship or something. Crazy, and more space stuff. This section really had it all. It had everything.
Yeah. So Steve forbade us from looking up Inkoroi in this book. So I'm hoping we find out more about those alien people.
Oh, you will.
I mean, that's like the consult creatures, right? Like we know that much at this point. It's the like I don't know if it's the skin spies, because I get the vibe the skin spies are made, like they're artificial. But I think the Synthes is one of the Inkoroi. I think that's what they said. Maybe in this section.
Or are they just a genetics experiment gone wrong?
Oh God.
Crow with the face of a human.
Yeah.
I totally missed that. If you find the
Yeah.
page, let me know. I'd like to. I probably need to reread that. There's sometimes like I'm reading this book and I'm like,
Oh.
I'm at the gym or whatever, like on the machine, and I'm just like, I just maybe it's a few cases where I just zone out.
I feel you. I have those sections too. This was one. It was like the one section where we got their POV. I know that much. And again, I'm looking for the alien stuff. So like it stood out to me. I saw Inkoroi and I was like, oh, this is it.
Okay.
There's one I liked from the Proyas POV and all the discussion about doubt, when Akamian sends him to go see the kind of people who express doubt. He says he saw much hesitation, but he wasn't so foolish as to confuse that with doubt. I like that.
That is good. What other quotes you got, Steve?
The ones I have are War's conviction.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about at the start. I think that's how they won, is just by not giving up, basically. That's what I got out of it. I don't know if there was actual strategy in the back half after they got surprised, but yeah.
I also like that section with the weapon training, when the master says, remind me of the thing from Mahabharata a little bit, but the master says, you have to the thing about not letting other people occupy your space, right? You're fighting for space. I like that. I'm trying to find the quote, but
Page 340 is where I think they talk about the Inquiry thing. That's definitely the page, like the section where we get the consult POV. And this reminded me, looking over this, that we also find out the name of the non-man civilization, or at least one of them, the Ishtarabinth, which I guess is a city. Ishtarabinth is a city, I think. And that Nin Silgiris seems to be the leader or something of the non-men. I thought that was cool to finally get some of their POVs. I don't know if we're going to see them a lot in this trilogy or if that's like next series. But we did get a little more non-men information, and we definitely found out that they definitely fought alongside humans against the consult, which was cool. It's like again, it's the classic like Lord of the Rings, right? Like elves and men team up, you know. But we have this horrible, messed up, apocalyptic version of that. I love it. See, this is when people are like aping Tolkien, I want them to do something crazy like this, you know, where it's like take it in like some crazy direction, you know, like to make it like heavy metal, grimdark like this. You know, do something crazy. Add aliens. Like this is what I'm here for.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. Thank you. That's the same name is mentioned in the dream in that Steve referenced us. So that's perfect.
Yeah, I love all the again like the world building that's done. I mean, this is why I come to epic fantasy, right? For the things, not only just like how it's drip fed to you, but like you get to see these great scenes of the past. You know, you hear these names that like initially don't necessarily mean anything to you, or maybe you get the context just to know like, oh, this is the non-man guy, right? But you like gradually unravel more and more, and you just see the scope of everything. And I love it. And Baker's killing that.
Yep, I agree. Any other closing thoughts?
I'm not seeing the word Inquiry, so maybe it was the last section then. I don't know, actually.
Yeah, the Inquiry was, I think, in the first 100 pages that we read. Or was it even in this book? I forget.
It was definitely... No, so the Inquiry have been mentioned at least twice. There was once where we didn't know what they were. We just knew they came from space, and we got the space story. And then there was a consult scene where I want to say it was the Synthes referred to his people as the Inquiry. Like I'm 100% positive this happened somewhere. I just do not remember where, because I remember being like, oh, I was looking for that word. There it is. And because it clarified, right? Because we were like, who are the Inquiry? Like, who are these aliens? And it's the consult. I don't know.
Right.
And then we got again another story in the flashback that Steve and Mike were just talking about, the dream, where we hear that they built a castle around something that fell from the stars. You know, whether that's a meteor or a spaceship, I don't know. But like something came from the stars, and they built their big evil, you know, Mordor around it. Or whatever the name of the tower is. I forget the name of Sauron's tower.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I think the first time was when, after that bit where Esmenet and Akamian find each other and they talk about stars, and then that leads up to the Inquiry having come from the stars. I mean, they were unrelated things, but I think it was in the same section I seem to recall.
In the dream, I flipped the page. It talks about the Ark, you know, the Ark. It's spelled with a K, but like this is a ship, right? Like this is a spaceship. They came from outer space, and they're not nice. I'm gonna laugh if the consult turned out to be like just like little like gray aliens. They're just like waddling around like big black eyes, like that'd be hilarious.
Little ETs.
Exactly.
Okay. Cool. So let's do outros, I suppose. Carl, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I am Carl, and I'm here for the aliens. You can find me on social media at Carl D. Albert. You can find me on the PageChewing forum. That's probably the best place to find me, just because I like going there as opposed to Twitter. And you can read my book, Truth of Crowns, if you would like to join us. I know Steve and Varsha are currently reading through it right now.
I haven't got to the part where people start dying yet, but now I'm dreading it.
Uh-oh. Sorry. Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah, I'm Mike, and you can find me on PageChewing, and I've been collaborating with Steve talking about comics. We talk about weekly comics that come out every week, and so you can tune into that as well. I think that's called PageChewing Comics and Manga.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We have our 25th issue tomorrow. Yeah, it'll be fun.
Nice.
We got a lot to talk about, actually.
Have a ton. Yeah, a lot. Yeah, so I just want to mention he's killing me with this book. There's so many, it's like one thing after another. It's like, wow, like this is insane. So yeah, lots and lots of things. It's yeah. So Varsha, I'm sure you're close to things popping.
It hits the fan about halfway through.
Okay,
There's a turning point in the midpoint, which I don't want to take up the ending too much, but in classical 5-act structure, there's a midpoint where everything changes, and there very much is in this book.
I'm just shy of the midpoint, so I guess I'll get there maybe tonight. Yeah, and Steve, were you done? No, you weren't.
You can find me on pagechewing.com on the forums. Join our forums. We have lots of stuff going on all the time, so come by and hang out with us.
Cool. And you can find me on my channel, Reading by the Rainy Mountain. I hang out on the PageChewing forum a lot. And once again, if you'd like to join us for these discussions, either on the forum or in the chat, consider joining the PageChewing forum. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you in about a week. Bye.